Welcome back, super friends. Today we are going to be adding mixed numbers. So that means we'll probably make them into improper fractions, add them, get our answer, then make them back into mixed numbers. So what you'll need for today is your math notebook or folder, pencil to write with, and don't forget that super brain of yours. Stay tuned for the video. All right, super friends, we are going to be adding mixed numbers. There's going to be a lot of the same steps being repeated. There's a couple of questions where we have to find a missing digit, so a missing part of the equation, whether it's the numerator or the denominator, but we have to find that. So I'm going to teach you how to do all of these things. Let's start with our first example, which says, what is the sum of 2 1/6 plus 3 4/12? So again, let's get started with our steps. Our first step, just like always, is find our common denominator. So let's go ahead and get our common denominator going. We have 6 and 12. I do know about my 6 and 12s. I know that 6 times 2 gives me 12, and I know 12 times 1 is 12. So my common denominator is 12. Equals 12. So that means that that is my new denominator that we're dealing with. So let's go ahead and do our second step, step 2. So again, remember, we leave our whole numbers alone. We're just messing with the fractions. The whole numbers, thankfully, can stay the same. The only thing that will be changing are our fractions. So let's rewrite our original, which is 2 1/6 plus 3 4/12. Now I'm messing with the fractions. I separate them from the whole number. So what do I need to do to make my 6 equal a 12? I have to multiply it by what? 6 times 2 equals 12. And whatever I do to the bottom, yep, I do to the top. So 1 times 2 equals 2. So now that new fraction is going to be 2 2/12. This will be step 3. 2 2/12. Now let's go ahead and deal with our 4/12. Do I have to change anything about the 4/12? You're correct, we do not, because the 12 is already 12. So what do? Just bring down my plus, bring down my 3 4/12. And now I go ahead and just do my final step, which is adding the new fractions. So looking at my new fractions, I always start with my fractional part, because if I add them and I can turn the fraction into a whole number with a leftover fraction, which would be a mixed number again, then I will do that. But since we're going to go ahead and get started, we're going to just add our fraction part. So now I have 2/12 plus 4/12. What will that equal? That will equal 6/12. And then I have, I triangle the next ones. Then I have 3 wholes plus 2 wholes. That is going to equal 5 wholes. So now my fraction is 5 6/12. But can't I turn that 6/12 into something? What would that look like? What is 6/12 equal to? Think about, what is it closest to? Is it closest to 0 over 12, 6 over 12, or 12 over 12? It's 6 over 12, which means it is 1/2. So these both are the same thing. Again, Ms. Triz is going to show us how to turn these into improper fractions. So the improper fraction is, and it'll be the same if we were to have done it with the 6/12, but I'll do it with the 1/2 because that's easier multiplication. So 2 times 5 equals 10. 10 plus 1 equals 11. So that turns to 11, and the 2 stays the same. All of these are the same answer. So many ways to write fractions. So fun. All right, let's do the second problem. All right, here goes our missing numbers. It says find the missing number. So looking at this, It looks like it should be super simple. I would think a 12 is going to go there. But if I just plug in a 12, the reason why I'm saying 12 is because all the other denominators are 12. But if I plug a 12 in there, let's see what happens. Okay, so if I'm adding, let's say it's 12. So this is 3/12. Okay, so 3 plus 1, if I'm going to add my fractions, that's going to give me 4/12. But my answer doesn't say 4/12. My answer says 10/12. So I know that that's not going to work. So let me go ahead and actually solve this out. So what we're doing is we're going to start by doing the opposite, especially for this problem because our denominators are the same with the two full fractions that we have. I think it's going to be very easy for us to solve this. So I want to do the opposite of what is already there in our operation. Since we're adding, what would be the opposite of adding? It would be subtracting. So we're going to subtract. All right, so since we're subtracting, we're going to take what we already have and subtract it. And we should start with the bigger number. So which one is bigger? The whole number that's bigger. Is it 8 or 6? 8. So we would start by putting our 8 and 10/12 first, and we'll subtract our 6 and 1/12. Let's see what we get. Again, start with your fractions. I have 10 minus 1. That equals 9. 9/12. Then I have 8 minus 6. That equals 2. So right now I have 2 and 9/12. So far, guys, this is looking really close to what we have that's like the part that we need to fill in. I already have the 2. Let's put a check mark there. That 2 is there. The only difference thing is that 9 is not a 3. But how can I make this 9 turn into a 3? I would have to divide, right? What would I divide 9 by to make me get a 3 up top? So what I want is that 3 here. What would I have to do? What do I know about 9 and 3s? Oh, I know that if I do 3 times 3, that gives me 9. So 9 divided by 3 would equal 3. That works. And whatever I do to the top, I do to the bottom. So let's see what that is. Now I have 12 divided by 3. What did that give me? 12 divided by 3 equals 4. Did we just find our missing number? I believe so. Our missing number is 4. All right, so what we had to do first was take what we already had. We had to work opposite, so we had to subtract, and then we had to simplify. We had to take what the answer was and divide it so that we can get a smaller fraction, which would give us our missing number. And the reason why I divided and simplified is because that 9 wasn't a 3. We needed that 9 to be a 3. So what do? We just divide it so that it could be a 3. And then whatever we do to the top, we do to the bottom. That way it gave us what we were looking for. And that's how we get our missing number for this problem. Let's go ahead and do the next example. All right, this one, we got some bigger numbers, but nothing that we can't handle. So this doesn't say anything about a missing number. It just gives us an addition problem. So let's go ahead and add. Step 1, common denominators. What do I know about my 4s and my 5s? Let's go ahead and skip count. So I have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Oh, I can stop there because I know that 5, 10, 15, 20 works for me. So 20 is the first number. That is the same. That is my common denominator. Equals 20. That means that that's my new denominator. So let's go ahead to step 2. I know in this case, we're changing both of these because neither of those denominators are 20. So I know I have to change both my denominators. So let's go ahead and rewrite our original fraction. So I have 13 and 2/4 plus 12 and 4/5. And let's start our changing. All right, we look at the fractions. Never forget, we're only looking at the fractions when we're making our equivalent fraction. That's why it's not called make your equivalent whole number. It's make your equivalent fraction. So what do I need to do to that 4 to make it equal 20? 4 times what gives me 20? 4 times, yep, 4 times 5 gives me 20. Whatever I do to the bottom, do to the top. Now 2 times 5 gives me 10. So now this new mixed number is going to be 13 and 10 over 20. We're still adding. And then let's go over to the 4/5. 5 times what gives me 20? 5 times 4, you're correct, gives me 20. Whatever I do to the bottom, do to the top. 4 times 4 gives me, you're correct, 16. So now this new mixed number is going to be 12 and 16 over 20. So now we can do our third step, which is add the new fractions. Let's add them. So I always start with my fraction in case I need to make it into a mixed number. So what am I going to have if I do 16 plus 10? That's going to give me 26 over 20. Uh-oh, I can already make this into a mixed number. How many 20s can I get out of 26? 120. And then what will be left over? Well, 26 minus 20 equals 6. And then what will be my denominator? Because it does not change. My denominator stays the same, and that will be 20. So that's how we get a mixed number. And then what was left for me to do? Add my 13, add my 12. So now, for my answer, I know my fraction is going to stay the same, but I'm just changing my whole numbers because I'm adding the whole numbers together. So what do I get? I have 1 plus 13. That equals 14. 14 plus 12 equals 26. So that's going to be 26, and then 6 over 20. Of course, we can also simplify the 6 over 20 into something smaller, but we'll keep it like this. If we need to simplify, of course, Ms. Joyce will show us how to do it later. But that would be our answer. Notice how I didn't make it into an improper fraction? That's fine. If we made it into an improper fraction, we'd have to do some really big multiplying. And I don't want to do big multiplying right now. So this is just going to be the mixed number. 26 and 6/20. All right, let's do our last problem. Here's another one. Find the missing number. All right, let's go back really quick to what we did this the first time. Let's see what we did. Okay, I see that I did opposite, which was subtract, and then whatever I did, I wanted to make it look like what was missing. Okay, let's get to it. So we're doing the opposite. Since it's adding here, let's subtract. So we're going to subtract now. What two fractions do we already have? We have 5 and 9 tenths, 5 and 9 fifteenths, and then we also have 1 and 1/10. Obviously, the 5 whole number is bigger, so we're going to do that first. So we're going to start with our 5 and 9 fifteenths, subtract our 1 and 1/10. Okay, so looking at this is not going to be simple for us because our 15 and 10 are not the same. So let's get our common denominator. Step 1, common denominator, we got 10s, and then we have 15s. 10, I know 10, 20, 30. Oh, ding, ding, ding. I know 15 times 2 gives me 30. So there's our common denominator. It's going to be 30. I do have to change both of them. So step 2, get my make equivalent fractions. So let's get the original going. 5 9 fifteenths minus 1 over 10. All right, what do I need to multiply my 15 by to get 30? 15 times what gives me 30? 15 times 2. And whatever I do to the bottom, do to the top. So now this new fraction is 18 over 30. So that new mixed number is 5 and 18/30. Ooh, that's a big one. We're still subtracting, and let's look at our 1/10. 10 times what gives me 30? 10 times 3 gives me 30. Whatever I do to the bottom, do to the top. So now this says 3 over 30. Okay, cool. So I have 1 and 3/30. Let's subtract. 18 minus 3 equals, what does that equal? 15, oops, mischoice. That says 10. Sorry. So it equals 15/30ths. Oh, that looks promising. And then what do we have next? 5 minus 1 equals 4. So the 4 is a whole number. All right, let's look back up to see what we're dealing with. So we have 4 and 3 blanks. Okay, so we want to turn this into something that says 4 with 3 on top, and then the blank is what we're going to have our answer be. So 15 divided by what gives me 3? Another way to think about it is 3 times what gives me 15. So what is that missing number here? 3 times 5 gives me 15. So that means I'm dividing by 5. Whatever I do to the top, do to the bottom. So now 30 times 5. Or sorry, 30 divided by 5. What is 30 divided by 5? Oh, Miss Choice, my brain doesn't work that way. That's fine. What is 5 times what gives me 30? Ah, there we go. 6. So 6 would be what we're dealing with. You see how 15 divided by 5 gives me 3? 30 divided by 5 gives me 6. So our missing number is 6. Missing number. That's our answer. That's how we do it. It did take us a long time, but we got there. And all we did was follow all of our steps. All right, use these notes to help you answer any questions. If you need help, you know where to find me.